Today, I'll be showing you guys how you could set up the text classifier node within n8n. It's one of the different AI nodes available for you guys to utilize. And essentially what it allows us to do is take in text and then classify the meaning behind it. You can think of this as like a customer support system. Hey, is this message specifically a bug that we need to fix? Is this just a general inquiry, or is just someone wanting to have a feature added into the app a little bit later? This is where a text classifier would be really helpful, although there's a ton of different other use cases for it. After we go through a few examples using the text classifier node, we're also going to take a look at using Hugging Face in n8n. And the reason why we want to use Hugging Face is they actually have pre-trained models for text classification based on your specific domain. And typically, if you use one of these models, you're going to get a little bit better of accuracy. So I wanted to also include that in this video. Lastly, I've recently launched a school community for people that are interested in data or AI for their business, or also for freelancing. So if you're interested in joining, the link is going to be down below in the description. I'm super active on there and would love to have you as part of our community. With that being said, let's jump into n8n and let's start learning a little bit more about text classification. Let's find the node. So where you find it, you go over here, search text and classifier like this. So you'll find our text classifier. The other way you can find it is you go into AI, you scroll all the way down and you see text classifier, classify your text into distinct categories. Now, let me first explain what a text classifier is. Zoom in over here. So a text classifier automatically categorizes text into predefined labels or classes based off of its content. For example, it can sort emails into spam or not spam. We'll show you that example at the end. Determine if a product review is a positive or negative, or identify the topics of a news article. Now, this positive or negative, this is kind of sentiment analysis, and well, that's true. So sentiment is a form of text classification. However, if you're focusing specifically on sentiment like positive or negative, you're better off using the sentiment node instead. So you just go over here and say sentiment, and you see there's sentiment analysis on here. So use sentiment analysis to determine if product review is positive or negative. Use the text classifier to categorize the same review by product type. So again, sentiment analysis is a type of text classifier, but how n8n has it built out, they have a separate node for it. So I would recommend that you go that approach. Let me show you what's inside this text classifier node, and then we'll jump through all these examples. So you can see we have a decent amount, as well as one example that doesn't use the node, and you'll see really why here soon. I'm just gonna have a manual trigger because I accidentally deleted that. And what we're gonna do is just go over here and open up the text classifier. So that way you get a little bit familiar with the node. We'll remove this over here, and you'll see by default, there's no outputs. So you actually define your outputs in here. First, we have the top part of our text. We can put static text in here. We can read in text from a previous node. A lot of different options. You should be pretty familiar with it by the time you watch this video in n8n. Down below is our categories. So this is like what we are going to classify into specific buckets. So you'll specify a category and then you will write that description. Down below, you have a few different options. So the first one is allow multiple classes to be true, which can happen in some cases. I'll show you an example. When no clear match, again, I'll show you an example. A system prompt, which I always highly recommend that you tweak your system prompt for your specific use case. You can see how the get-go, it has a decent system prompt. It says, please classify the text provided by the user into one of the following categories. Grabs these categories from up over here and use the provided formatting instructions below. Don't explain and only output the JSON. So I know this is kind of get us a output parser, which I'll show you here in a second as well. You have enable auto fixing and then also batch processing. But one of the things to mention as well is you could technically do text classification in an AI agent. So if we go over here, we have an AI agent, but the thing with it is in our AI agent, first we have tools, which we aren't using in this text classifier. We aren't using memory. And the only thing that's the same is we're using this chat model over here. You can set up a system message. Over here, you'd also have to set a specific output, whereas the text classifier, it's already going to give you the output. You can see only output over here in JSON. So a little bit different from the AI agent. Again, you can perform the same task. We're doing an AI agent, but this is just specialized for the text classifier. So I'm going to remove that over here. We're going to jump into our first example. So our first example, what we're going to do is modify our system prompt, and we're going to build out 4 things over here. In addition, you can add in a lot of different types of large language models. You can see there's lots over here. For these examples, I'm just going to use GPT-5 Mini because I feel most people have OpenAI already set up in their n8n instance. And yeah, we're going to go through that approach. So what we're going to do is just hook up this manual trigger. And what you'll see is we're going to do something based around customer support ticket routing. So we're going to have 4 different categories, 1 for technical support, 1 for billing questions, 1 for feature requests, and then just general inquiries. And you'll see we have our text to classify, which we have multiple examples over here. So we'll go through those. But regardless, we have our technical support and we write a description. So issues with product functionality, bugs, or technical problems. We have a category for billing questions, questions about payment, invoices, subscriptions, or pricing, feature requests, suggestions for new features or product improvements, and then general inquiry, general questions about company policies or services. So we have all of those over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to modify this system prompt. So what we're going to do is put our system prompt over here to the side, and let's write this out. So what we're going to say instead is, by default, we say, please classify the text provided by the user into one of the following categories and use the provided formatting instructions below. Don't explain. So let's talk about the customer support side. So we're going to say, you are routing customer support questions. Right. So we're saying you're routing customer support questions. Please classify the text provided by the user into one of the following categories, which they're getting explained over here, and use the provided formatting instructions below. Don't explain and only output the JSON. I think this is fine. We didn't get too detailed with this one, and sometimes you can, but this should probably work because we have customer support questions. We talk about the specific categories. It's not an overly complicated example. So what we're going to do is feed these one at a time and see how these work. I'm going to show you some of these over here as well for our second example, but we'll start off here at the first one. And our first one over here is this app crashes on startup. So let's execute this step. And let's see where this one lands. And you can see this lands in our technical support branch, and it has one item that is empty. Cool. So it goes over there on that side of things. And I'm going to close this out as well. So let's go through these next 3, and we're going to actually go through chat message received. So it goes a little bit faster, and see where these land up. So the only modification, if we want to use chat input, we're going to go over here and use an expression. And then you're just going to paste in this over here, json.chat input, a little bit of a n8n hack for you if you want to get the previous node when it's just a chat message. Again, I haven't really changed anything else. Like, we're going to still use GPT-5 Mini, and we're just going to open this chat over here, and we're going to go our next example. When is my next payment due? So we're going to send that over here. And again, why this is super helpful is we could have different routes based off of a message received, and we can populate our workflow around that. So you can see over here that it output this into the billing questions. Let's go to the next one, which is please add mobile apps support. We'll put that over here. Again, you'll see it runs, it goes into feature requests. And then lastly, what's your refund policy? And what's cool about this is, we go to these different branches. You might have some automated text you want to send back. You might have a Slack message that gets to someone. What's interesting is this one actually didn't perform correctly. So you can see what's your refund policy, and it actually got sent to a billing question, and it goes into billing questions. And actually I should have been more specific because that shouldn't have been a general inquiry one. That's actually more of a billing question. I should say, we should have something based around, what hours are you open? Let's do that. What hours are you open? This should be more of a general inquiry, because it's none of the other above. So apologies on that small minor mistake. Let's test this one. What hours are you open? And now this should go to general inquiry. And then you can see it goes into the general inquiry bucket. Again, it's super important that, well, number one, you go here and fill out all these descriptions, because the more context you give around a category, the more accurate your results are going to specifically be. And then you can see our output is going to be whatever branch it's going to get pasted into on that side of things. Cool. So let's jump into our next example now, and we're going to take a look at allowing multiple classes to be true. I'm just going to go over here and drag this here, and let's jump right into it. So the first thing, I changed these up a little bit. So what we're going to do is take a look at different categories. So an educational category, a promotional category, something that's time sensitive, and something that is product related. Going to give a little bit more context over here, talking about each of these descriptions. I'm not going to read all of them across the board, but the only difference now that we do as well is I added an option over here for allow multiple classes to be true. And I clicked over here to activate this and turn this green. So we're going to just test a few of these on this side of it. So for example, webinar today, learn about our new features. This should trigger multiple categories. So what we're going to do is test that out. So we'll execute this step. And you'll see that this actually hit product, time sensitive, promotional, as well as educational, as mentioned all four over here. Sale ends tonight at midnight. You'll see that this also has multiple items across the board. So let's test this one now. We'll execute that step. And you can see promo as well as time sensitive. And then how to set up your first workflow. Well, that's only educational. Maybe that could also technically be promotional if you think of it as like a promo, but we'll see where that goes. And also maybe this would fit into the product related side of it, depending on how this text goes, but we'll test it out and see. But you can see it only went through the educational side of it on this example. So it could either be one item, it could be two items, and it could be all items as I showed you over here. Now, let's talk about what happens if there's no clear match. So in most cases, you want to build out categories based off of what matches you think that they're going to be. What happens if there's not? Or if you just want to ignore things that shouldn't be going through. So in this case, we're going to classify emails. So we're going to have something that's considered important. We're going to have something that's considered a promo or a social media update. If it's spam, we're going to ignore it. So we're going to paste in our text over here. You can see category, promo, social update, and then just, again, more description associated with each of these across the board. Okay. And then what we have over here is we have two different options when there's no cleared match. We can either disregard the item or we can output an extra other branch. So let's first show the discard item. And just to show you that this works properly as well, what we'll do is just go over here and we're going to paste in a few of these. So your password changed. We're going to go over here and we're going to run this. And what you'll see, and let me just close this out so we have a little bit more room. What you'll see is that went into important. We can do summer sale, 25% off. It's going to go into our promo. Okay. We have a friend request. That should be our social update. So let's run that. Okay. And now here's a spam one. Free money, click here. Very spammy. No, there's a chance that this shows up into the promo side of it, but hopefully this goes into the spam. So we're going to run this. And it actually went to promo. Okay, so I reran this over here and it worked. So I just want to give a little bit of context what I did. I went over here and I just added in additional criteria. This should not include things that look like spam. This initially should have been over here, but it wasn't. And now when I run this, no results because we have disregarded that item. Okay, so now I made one other modification as well. So since we have this other category on there, what I said is I updated our system prompt and I said, you're classifying emails and your job is to put them in the appropriate category with my misspelling of appropriate. And I said, if email looks spammy, put it in the other category. So now it will populate into the other. So two different options. You can have an additional branch, or you could discard the item. All right, so now let's talk about fine-tuned models. So you can't actually use this text classifier node for it, but if you have a specific use case for a domain, it's probably better off using a fine-tuned model of some capacity. So where I would recommend that you start is taking a look at Hugging Face, and I'm just going to show you guys how to set this up. So Hugging Face has like 2.2 million models out there. What we're going to do is look for text classification. So you go over here to NLP, natural language processing. So click text classification. We're down to 103,000 models. And then you can filter by what you're trying to look for. I'd also recommend that you look for something in your particular language. Now, I only know English, so I'll be going through that, but go through over here and see if there's a specific model. You're going to want to find something that has curl as well. So let me show you an example of one that I found for this video. I haven't done a deep dive into this model in particular, but it has 18,000 downloads last month. So I would assume it's somewhat decent. And what we're looking for is view code snippets. And we're going to copy this curl right into n8n. So copy this. We're going to go and set up an HTTP request. So import in curl and then paste this in over here. And a few things to change. So first, remove the send headers. What we're going to do is set up predefined authentication. And then what we're going to specifically look for is Hugging Face. And you're going to want to set up your Hugging Face API and put in your credential over here. I've already set mine up. We'll talk about Hugging Face for another video in the future, but make sure you put that in over here. And then in the JSON body, this is what we're going to be taking a look at. Now I already have an edit set fields beforehand, so I'm just going to drag and drop this. So in over here, what I'm going to do is take a look at this text. And this model is specifically for a text classification of spam or non-spam based off of text messages. So you can see fine-tune SMS spam detection. So they have a lot of different text messages and they can determine if it's spam or not. I looked at some of the examples that they gave on that side of it. So it says data set, and you can just click on here and you can see this example. So 0 human, 1 is spam. So I just copied this one over here. A free entry in a 2-week comp to win FA Cup final tickets on that side of it. So what we're going to do is just test that. And then I'll just go over here and execute step. And you'll see we have our different labels. And obviously, like, you can clean up the data down the line, but you can see label 1, which if we go back into this data set is spam. So that is correct. We get 0.9 versus 0.09. But again, I'd recommend that you really do a deep dive into the model that you want to particularly use for text classification. But you will find more accuracy if you have a model trained for a specific use case versus just broadly using a large language model for a text classifier. However, for ease of use, like, this is quite simple to set up. This is a little bit more complicated, but I had to show you that with the text classification side of it, because if accuracy is super important, right, you might want to test some of these other things. But let's jump again and kind of recap what we covered today. So what we took a look at today is a text classifier. And essentially what this does is it takes a lot of text that you have and then classifies it based off of a specific category. What we did, for example, is set up different categories over here, and we set a description on there. There's also a system prompt, which I highly recommend that you modify just to give a little bit more additional information about what your use case is for the text classifier. So I showed you manual, I showed you a chat message received. You also have the option for multiple classes to be true, or when there's no clear match, either you disregard it or send it to this other. Again, we'll add more context over here just based off of what you want to specifically do in the system prompt. You sometimes might not get the highest amount of accuracy just using a blank text classifier like this. So if you're finding it's not working correctly, what you should do is try to explore models on Hugging Face. And yeah, so just take a look at the model selection, look for text classifiers, and look for particular something that you could possibly use. And again, experiment. Like, if this works accurately enough for your use case, awesome. If you're finding that this isn't working properly, jump into over here. There's not always one solution for a workflow. And sometimes it's good to experiment, good to take a look at other ways on how to do it. So that is it for the video. Hopefully you guys found some value in it. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're uploading a ton of different n8n, AI, and data content over here. And listen, if you want to network with other people in this community, we do have a free school community. So make sure to join that as well. Learn how people are using AI and also making some money freelancing and taking on customers. Again, we have like 50 plus n8n videos. So check out our playlist if you want to learn a little bit more, and I will catch you guys in another video.